Takemichi Hanagaki is a 26-year-old ugly ristless guy whose life has been nothing but a series of frustrations. While lounging at home, eating snacks, he watches a news report about a violent altercation within the Tokyo Manji gang that caused several civilian casualties, including Naoto and Hinata Tachibana. Takemichi is stunned as Hinata was his only girlfriend back in middle school. A neighbor interrupts his thoughts, complaining about his loud TV, and Takemichi apologizes. At work, his manager scolds him for not shelving DVDs correctly, and again, Takemichi apologizes. On his way home, some kids scratch a car and run, leaving him to take the blame. At the train station, overwhelmed by his constantly apologetic, unfulfilled life, someone suddenly pushes him onto the tracks. Just before the train hits, Takemichi's last thought is of Hinata. To his shock, Takemichi flashes back to his second year of middle school in 2005, where life was much better, and he even had a girlfriend. He finds himself in his 14-year-old body, surrounded by his old friends Makoto, Yamagishi, Akin, and Takuya. Upon realizing it is July 4, 2005, Takemichi is confused but goes along with his friends to a burger joint. They mention how lucky they are that Takemichi's cousin, Masaru, is the leader of Shibuya 3rd Middle School, offering them protection from older kids. However, Takemichi knows this isn't true. When they head to Shibuya for a fight with second-year students, they are instead confronted by Masataka Kayamizu, a third year, who exposes Masaru as nothing more than a gopher for the gang. The harsh reality sets in as Takemichi and his friends are beaten up and forced to join the Tokyo Manji gang, marking the beginning of his torment that led him to leave town after graduating. Takemichi, overwhelmed by his return to the past, goes to visit Hinata, almost forgetting what she looked like. Upon seeing his bruises, she scolds him for fighting over meaningless things. Overcome with emotion, Takemichi cries, claiming he just wanted to see her. Hinata tries to comfort him, sensing something strange about his behavior, but he leaves, heading to a playground to clear his head. While sitting on the swings, he notices some boys harassing a child. Takemichi steps in, threatening the bullies until they run off. The child introduces himself as Naoto Tachibana, Hinata's younger brother. Knowing that Naoto is destined to die in 12 years, Takemichi warns him to protect his sister and shares that he traveled back in time. He urges Naoto to remember the date July 1, 2017, as it is when both he and Hinata will die. When they shake hands, everything goes black. Takemichi awakens in the present, unharmed but confused, on July 4, 2017. He is in the train station infirmary and wonders how he survived. Naoto, now an adult police officer, appears, explaining that Takemichi changed the past by warning him. As a result, Naoto was able to save him. However, despite their efforts, Naoto still couldn't save Hinata. Desperate, Naoto asks Takemichi to help him change the future and save his sister permanently. Takemichi agrees to help Naoto save Hinata. Naoto explains that Takemichi possesses the power of time travel, but his ability is limited. He can only jump exactly 12 years into the past, always on the same day. For the next 2 days, Takemichi stays in Naoto's room, trying to memorize all the information Naoto has gathered about the Tokyo Manji gang. Some of this information is highly sensitive and was discovered by Naoto's predecessor during an undercover investigation, but the investigation came to a brutal end when his cover was blown, and he was killed. A video of the murder was later found hidden in his eye socket. Naoto has been working hard to solve the case since he got transferred to this position 6 months ago and believes Takemichi's time-traveling abilities could be the key to changing the future. Since Takemichi cannot time travel at will, Naoto advises him that when he returns to the past, his mission must be to meet the 2 most crucial members of the Tokyo Manji gang, Manjiro Sano, also known as Mikey, and Tada Kisaki. Naoto theorizes that if these 2 never meet, the current Tokyo Manji gang won't exist, and Hinata will survive. Though Takemichi is unsure how he'll achieve this, Naoto suggests that the key to triggering the time jump is a handshake, as seen before. They shake hands, and Takemichi is sent back 12 years. Takemichi finds himself in the middle of an underground fight club, with people betting on who will win. Confused, he checks his phone to confirm he's in the past, but before he can react, he is knocked out by his opponent. When he regains consciousness, Masataka Kayamizu's gang is furious with him because weak fights like his could ruin the betting business. Masataka orders his men to beat Takemichi as punishment. As Takemichi is attacked, he recalls how he used to be Masataka's slave, an experience so miserable that it drove him to abandon his friends and Hinata. Before Masataka leaves, Takemichi mentions his desire to meet Manjiro or Tada, which infuriates Masataka. He grabs a bat and beats Takemichi more violently, threatening to kill him if he speaks Manjiro's name again. This violent response terrifies Takemichi, making him doubt whether meeting these powerful figures is even possible. Shaken, Takemichi heads to Naoto's house, intending to shake hands and return to the present. However, he forgets that Hinata also lives there. When she sees him beaten up, she expresses concern. Hinata tells Takemichi that if she were a boy, she'd fight to protect him. Deeply moved by her words, Takemichi promises to protect her instead. Surprised, he calls her Hina, and she blushes, happy to hear her nickname. This interaction reignites Takemichi's determination to save Hinata. The next day, Takemichi's friends meet in the bathroom, worried about the fight club. Takuya, one of their friendlier friends, is set to fight, and Takemichi remembers that Takuya almost died in this fight. Just before the fight begins, Takemichi boldly steps in and challenges Masataka himself, declaring a fight between a king and a slave. Takemichi realizes that if he wants to save Hinata, he can't remain weak, so he challenges Masataka to a fight. Masataka agrees, and Takemichi quickly realizes how much stronger his opponent is. Despite a brutal beating, Takemichi refuses to give up, determined to fight for something more important than himself. His friend Atsushi, seeing the situation grow desperate, contemplates stabbing Masataka to end the violence. However, Atsushi notices that the crowd, initially cheering for Masataka, has gone silent, captivated by Takemichi's relentless willpower. Even as Takemichi's friends urge him to quit, he refuses, declaring that if Masataka wants to win, he'll have to kill him. Surprised by Takemichi's resolve, Masataka grabs a bat, signaling his intention to escalate the fight. Just as the situation reaches a critical point, Ken Ryoguchi, Draken, the vice commander of the Tokyo Manji gang, steps in, telling Masataka to calm down, as he is scaring the crowd. Manjiro Sano Mikey, the gang's commander, arrives soon after, complaining to Ken about running out of dorayaki, a sweet snack. The crowd immediately bows in respect to Mikey, leaving Takemichi's friends confused by the sudden shift in atmosphere. Mikey approaches Takemichi and, after asking his name, nicknames him Takemichi. To everyone's surprise, Mikey declares that Takemichi is his new friend. When Mikey discovers that Masataka is in charge of the fight club, he kicks him in the face and beats him up. Quickly bored, Mikey orders Draken to ensure the fight club doesn't tarnish the Tokyo Manji gang's reputation, and then they leave. Later, Takemichi's friends, Kazushi and Makoto, are thrilled that he became friends with Mikey, but Takemichi is terrified, feeling that he's traded one dangerous figure for an even scarier one. Atsushi confesses that he had planned to stab Masataka to free them from his grip, but thanks to Takemichi's courage, they are now free. The next morning, Takemichi runs into Hinata, who invites him on a date after her cram school. In class, he reflects on how he met Mikey, but is still unsure how to prevent him from meeting Tadakasaki, the key to changing the future. Suddenly, Mikey and Draken burst into his classroom, casually asking Takemichi to hang out. Outside, Takemichi sees third-year students beaten up by Draken, who orders them to lie on their stomachs as Mikey and Draken walk over them. Mikey invites Takemichi to join them, but Hinata arrives, misinterpreting the situation, thinking Mikey and Draken are bullying Takemichi. Without hesitation, Hinata slaps Mikey and tries to take Takemichi away. Draken blocks them, but Hinata boldly tells them off, saying real friends wouldn't take someone by force. Impressed by her spirit, Mikey promises not to harm her. When Hinata apologizes for slapping him, Mikey reassures her, and she lets Takemichi go with them, postponing their date. As Takemichi rides bikes with Mikey and Draken, he recalls Naoto's warning about the gang's dark future and wonders how Mikey, who doesn't seem evil, could cause such destruction. Mikey explains that Takemichi reminds him of his older brother, who inspired him to lead a new era for delinquents. Takemichi, still uncertain, wonders what could have changed Mikey and the Tokyo Manji gang so drastically. While lost in thought, he passes a group of guys and gets the strange feeling that he's seen one of them before. Hinata sees some noisy students on the train and asks them to make space for an elderly lady. Hinata later invites Takemichi to her house to help him study, making Takemichi excited as it's his first time visiting a girl's room. Hinata thanks him for helping her brother, Naoto, and explains how their father's frequent absence made Naoto dislike him, but eventually, Naoto wanted to become a police officer like their dad. Takemichi reassures Hinata about Naoto's future success. She notices that Takemichi seems more mature and wants to learn more about this new side of him. As fireworks start, Hinata takes Takemichi to the rooftop. Takemichi, lost in the moment, realizes he doesn't want a future without her. He reaches for her hand but suddenly finds himself gripping Naoto's hand, which brings him back to the present. Takemichi wakes up crying, and Naoto confirms that their handshakes trigger time travel. They also discover that Takemichi goes back exactly 12 years, and that time in the past mirrors the present, where his body remains suspended. Takemichi tells Naoto he met Manjiro Sano, and Naoto wonders why he didn't kill him to stop Toman's corruption. They decide to investigate Manjiro. They discover that Atsushi Sendo, who was once arrested for stabbing Masataka Kayamizu, is now a top-ranking member of Toman. Takemichi sets up a meeting with Atsushi, hoping he can connect them to Manjiro. When they meet, Atsushi confesses that he was the one who pushed Takemichi onto the train tracks but reveals that he's now working for Teda Kisaki, the real leader of Toman. Atsushi explains everything changed after Draken's death and begs Takemichi to go back in time to save everyone. Tragically, Atsushi jumps off the rooftop. Takemichi is devastated, and Kisaki is revealed to have been listening. Takemichi and Naoto now aim to investigate Draken's death, believing Kisaki's influence corrupted Toman. Takemichi vows to save everyone. The next day, Takemichi is fired from his job after being absent for 2 weeks, though his boss reassures him that he'll still be paid. Unsure whether to tell Hinata about his time travel, Takemichi consults Naoto, who advises against it, fearing she might not believe him. With no leads after Atsushi's death, their only option is to go back in time to prevent Ken Ryoguchi's Draken death. Naoto reveals that Ken died on August 3, 2005, during a biker gang fight, supposedly in conflict with Manjiro Mikey. However, Takemichi doubts this, knowing the two were close friends. Naoto tasks him with saving Ken to stop the tragic chain of events that followed. After shaking hands with Naoto, Takemichi returns to the past and wakes up in a karaoke room with a half-dressed girl, Emma, on top of him. Panicking, he rushes out and tries to hide the situation from Hinata, but she overhears and notices his strange behavior. Ken calls Takemichi to meet him at the Musashi Shrine, and Hinata insists on joining. Upon arriving, Takashi Mitsuya, Toman's 2nd Division captain, steps in to vouch for Takemichi and leads him to Manjiro. Ken warns that bringing Hinata was dangerous, so Emma looks after her, causing a misunderstanding that leads to Hinata angrily leaving. At the Toman meeting, Pachin reveals that Mobius attacked his friend and his family, and he wants revenge. Manjiro agrees, declaring they will fight Mobius at the Musashi Festival on August 3rd. Takemichi realizes this is the day Ken is supposed to die and vows to protect him. He follows Ken and Manjiro, witnessing their deep bond. Seeing how much Ken means to Manjiro, Takemichi understands that Ken's death is what ultimately caused Manjiro to change, and their friendship is key to preventing future tragedies. Ken Ryoguchi, known as Draken, grew up in Shibuya's red light district and lived in a brothel. Abandoned by his mother and never knowing his father, Ken's intimidating height earned him his nickname. By 5th grade, he had a head tattoo and was known for winning many fights. Despite his reputation, the Samiyama crew ruled the area and had beaten Ken in the past. One day, they ordered Ken to bring Mikey, a troublesome kid, to them. When Ken found Mikey, he was surprised by how small he was but decided not to force him to go. Mikey, impressed by Ken's approach, agreed to go willingly. Upon arrival, Mikey knocked out Samiyama, scaring the gang, and asked Ken to be friends. In the present, Takemichi doubts Mikey and Draken would ever fight, so he and Naoto track down Nobutaka Osanai, former leader of Mobius, to uncover the truth. They find Nobutaka working at a construction site, where he reveals that he didn't order Ken's death, but the fight between Toman and Mobius triggered internal conflict within Toman. He hints that someone else was behind these events, and his life fell apart after Ken's death. Determined to prevent this, Takemichi returns to the past and reunites with Atsushi Sendo, encouraging him to follow his dream of becoming a hairstylist. Takemichi then pleads with Manjiro, Mikey, Draken, and Pachin to call off the fight with Mobius, warning that it's a trap. Pachin, enraged, attacks Takemichi, but Manjiro refuses to back down. As tensions rise, Ken suggests investigating Mobius further, which causes friction with Manjiro. Suddenly, Nobutaka Osanai arrives with Mobius members, mocking Toman and surrounding them, preparing for the fight. Mobius surrounds Toman, and Takemichi is shocked by how different Nobutaka Osanai looks compared to his future self. Nobutaka punches Takemichi, thinking he's being disrespected, but Pachin steps in to defend him. Mikey tells everyone to step back, letting Pa handle the fight. Pachin takes on Nobutaka but is quickly defeated. Before Pa falls, Mikey catches him and reassures him that he hasn't lost. As Mobius mocks Toman, Mikey steps up and knocks out Nobutaka with a single kick, challenging anyone else who doubts Pachin's strength. He declares that no one in Toman will ever lose as long as he's with them. When Nobutaka tries to attack again, Ken easily stops him and criticizes him for crossing the line by hurting innocent people. Seeing Mikey and Ken's power, Mobius members become frightened. Ken announces that Mobius will now be part of Toman, but as the police approach, everyone runs. Just when things seem resolved, Pachin stabs Nobutaka, shocking everyone. He apologizes and decides to turn himself in. Takemichi, overwhelmed, passes out and wakes up in the hospital with Emma by his side. She tearfully explains that Pachin's actions led to a big fight between Mikey and Ken, splitting Toman into two factions. Hinata walks in and misunderstands the scene, thinking something is going on between Takemichi and Emma. 3 days later, Takemichi finishes a puzzle when his friends visit and mention Toman might split. They laugh, saying Mikey and Ken always fight, but Ken soon arrives, tense. He says Toman is splitting, and when asked about Mikey, he angrily leaves. Outside, Ken and Mikey argue, escalating into a fight where they break Takemichi's belongings. Frustrated, Takemichi finally yells at them to stop. After Manjiro and Ken break all of Takemichi's belongings during their fight, Takemichi angrily yells at them to stop. They realize they've gone too far, and when Takemichi tries to punch Manjiro, he misses and falls into the trash. Ken apologizes and asks Takemichi to calm down, but Takemichi scolds them for not caring about others and risking splitting Toman. Manjiro, noticing Takemichi has trash on his head, runs off with Ken because of the smell, and even Takemichi's friends flee. Later, after Takemichi cleans up, Manjiro and Ken make up and apologize. Manjiro admits he doesn't remember why they were fighting, but Takemichi realizes it was over Pachin. Manjiro wanted to help Pachin, while Ken respected Pachin's decision to turn himself in. Takemichi feels he has changed the future, believing Ken won't die now. On August 3rd, Takemichi, Hinata, Emma, and Ken attend a festival together. Hinata tests Takemichi's devotion by asking him to win a prize, but he fails. As it starts to rain, Takemichi and Hinata share a tender moment, and Hinata forgives him for his earlier mistake. However, their moment is interrupted by a call from Kazushi, warning Takemichi that some Toman members still plan to attack Ken. Takemichi rushes to find Ken, but he is captured by Masataka Kayamizu, who plans to kill Ken. After being beaten and tied up, Hinata finds Takemichi and comforts him, kissing him and reassuring him that he's special. Inspired by her words, Takemichi escapes and warns Takashi Mitsuya about the attack. Takashi already knows about the plan and explains that Pain is the one who disagrees with Ken, not Masataka. Meanwhile, Pain finds Ken and Emma. While looking for Ken Ryaguchi, Takashi explains that Pain feels Toman abandoned Pachin, so he teamed up with some Mobius members to take down Ken. When Ken sees Pain, he knows Pain is upset and prepares to fight, but a Mobius member suddenly hits Ken from behind with a bat. Takemichi remembers Naoto saying Ken's incident happened in a parking lot, so they head there. They find Ken fighting a group of Mobius members. Exhausted, Ken sits down and tells Takashi to take over. Moments later, they hear a bike and recognize it's Manjiro Sano's. Manjiro realizes he was tricked into being somewhere else so Pain could confront Ken and try to break Toman. Shuji Hanma, the temporary leader of Mobius, appears and reveals they planned to destroy Toman through internal conflict. Manjiro tries to kick Shuji, but he blocks it. Shuji then calls for 100 Mobius members and warns them not to run or he'll knock out their teeth. Takemichi realizes he has changed the timeline, but now a new conflict is starting. As Mobius prepares to fight, the rest of Toman arrives on bikes, ready to battle. Takemichi looks for Ken, wanting to protect him from Masataka Kayamizu. While fighting, Manjiro confronts Pain, asking why he attacked Ken after they had settled things. Pain believes Toman abandoned Pachin and starts punching Manjiro, saying that Pachin meant everything to him. So if Toman gave up on him, Pain had no choice but to turn against them. He knows Manjiro could beat him with one hit but wonders why Manjiro isn't fighting back. Manjiro pulls Pain close, telling him to look at him and ask if he ever smiled about Pachin's arrest. Manjiro, remembering Takemichi's words, says he never thought Toman could end with them all fighting each other. He offers to let Pain keep hitting him but says he doesn't want to fight his own family and asks Pain to come back. Meanwhile, Takemichi spots Masataka and tries to stop him, but sees him holding a bloody blade, muttering, "I did it." Takemichi turns and sees Ken bleeding on the ground. Takemichi finds Ken stabbed and tells Manjiro. Manjiro tries to reach Ken, but Shuji Hama blocks his way and they start fighting. Manjiro tells Takemichi to take care of Ken. Seeing Ken is still alive, Takemichi carries him on his back, trying to get him to a hospital. Hinata and Emma see them and tell him they've already called an ambulance. While waiting, Takemichi sees Masataka Kayamizu and his gang approaching. Scared, he hears Ken thank him for helping and tells him to take Hinata and Emma and run. Takemichi realizes Ken knows he wanted to flee, but since he lost everything once by running away, he chooses not to make the same mistake. He confronts Masataka, saying he won't back down and wants his revenge. Takemichi reminds Masataka they never finished their one-on-one fight. Masataka is annoyed, thinking Takemichi has gone crazy, but Ken, Hinata, and Emma bet that Takemichi will win. Takemichi tries to punch Masataka, but Masataka stabs him in the arm, saying this isn't a fair fight but an execution. Even though Takemichi struggles, he tackles Masataka and bites him. Despite being hit, Takemichi climbs onto Masataka's back and starts choking him, declaring that while he may not be like Manjiro, he is Takemichi Hanagaki. Refusing to let go, Takemichi makes Masataka pass out and wins. Masataka's gang gets ready to attack Takemichi. He tells Hinata to take Emma and run. Standing up, Takemichi asks Ken if he wonders what heaven looks like. Ken, laughing, stands up and says he's heading to hell instead. Just as Masataka's gang moves to attack, Atsushi shows up and punches one of them, causing him to drop his knife. Makoto, Takuya, and Kazushi also arrive to protect Ken and Takemichi. Atsushi says Hinata contacted him. They start fighting Masataka's gang but are quickly overpowered. Despite this, inspired by Takemichi's bravery, Atsushi and the others refuse to give up and keep standing. Then, the sound of ambulance sirens is heard, and Takemichi grins, feeling like they've won. Hearing the ambulance sirens, Masataka's gang flees, abandoning him. Meanwhile, Hinata and Emma guide the medics to Takemichi and Ken. Toman emerges victorious over Mobius, with only Manjiro and Shuji still battling. Impressed by Manjiro's stamina, Shuji prepares to leave after introducing himself as the vice commander of a new biker gang called Valhalla. In the ambulance, Takemichi is with Ken, who thanks him for saving him and asks Takemichi to look after Manjiro. Suddenly, Ken suffers cardiac arrest, prompting doctors to perform CPR. Upon arrival at the hospital, Ken is rushed into surgery. One by one, Takemichi's friends and Toman members arrive, and Manjiro reassures them that Ken cannot die because they have plans to rule the world together. After the surgery, the doctors inform everyone that Ken is alive, leading to a celebration. Pain, feeling guilty, admits he cannot face the group. Takashi comforts him, explaining that Ken truly cared for Pachin and even visited his parents daily. Inspired, Pain agrees to apologize. As it turns past midnight into August 4th, Takemichi realizes Ken has survived the attack, marking his mission successful. While Toman celebrates, he searches for Manjiro and finds him alone, crying tears of relief for Ken's survival. By August 10th, Takemichi has become a legend for stopping the fight, enjoying his newfound fame while reluctant to return to the present. He visits Ken, who playfully mocks him, and gifts Takemichi Toman's original uniform from Manjiro. On the roof, Manjiro ponders the recent conflicts and expresses gratitude to Takemichi. Knowing it's time to return to the present, Takemichi gifts Hinata a 4-leaf clover necklace and shakes hands with Naoto. Back in the present, Takemichi finds himself at the video store, surprised to still be working there. He discovers Atsushi at a salon, training to be a hairstylist, and feels thrilled about the changes in the present. He receives a call from Naoto, confirming his success in altering the future and expressing a desire to see Hinata. As Takemichi rides in Naoto's car, he recalls the helplessness he felt upon learning about Hinata's death. Excited yet nervous to see her again, Naoto informs him that the tragic event known as the Toman dispute hasn't occurred in this timeline. Arriving at Hinata's apartment, Takemichi feels overwhelmed, thinking about how much she has changed over the past 12 years. Naoto mentions that she is now an adult and an elementary school teacher. Despite his excitement, Takemichi hesitates, feeling like a stranger to Hinata and considering it might be better for Naoto to visit her alone. He convinces himself that just wishing her well is enough, as he believes she has forgotten him. Reflecting on the changes in the future, he still feels like the same 26-year-old loser working part-time. Unexpectedly, he bumps into a grown-up Hinata, who comments on his strange timing. Overwhelmed with emotion, he tears up, recalling how she motivated him. In Hinata's apartment, an awkward tension arises among the three, prompting Naoto to leave. Takemichi pleads for him to stay, feeling too nervous to be alone with Hinata. She laughs, noting he hasn't changed, and he notices the four-leaf clover necklace around her neck. When Naoto receives a call from the police, he leaves, and Takemichi fears he's lost his chance to win Hinata back. At a park, Hinata reminisces about someone she liked, making Takemichi realize she has moved on. She unexpectedly asks him why he dumped her, leading to confusion since he didn't remember the breakup. Inspired by her words, Takemichi decides to ask her out. However, upon returning from the bathroom, he encounters Shuji, making him uneasy. As he rushes back to Naoto's car, he witnesses a horrific accident where Akin's car crashes, and he is horrified to see Akin, who is seriously injured, and warns him about the dangers of Kisaki. In despair, Takemichi runs to save Hinata, who is trapped in the car as it catches fire. He confesses his love to her, but she urges him to escape, fearing he will die with her. Refusing to leave her side, he crawls into the car, but Hinata pushes him away just before the car explodes. With flames raging, Takemichi vows to save Hinata and promises to become the top member of Toman to secure a future where she survives, no matter how many attempts it takes.